If you're ready, I'll start the meeting.
Ready when you are. I'm not hearing the magic voice.
Wait for it.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn Cox, and welcome to the March 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Land Use and Environment Committee. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Agenda as published.
Second.
All righty. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the agenda as shown here, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, of course not. All righty. So first up is the Energy Efficiency Program update with Rick Walk. Hi, Rick.
Good meeting. Good evening. Good morning, Council Committee. You were bright-eyed and teary-eyed, or whatever that goes. I just want to take a brief moment to introduce you to our newest addition to our department, Hans Shepard, who joined us as a senior planner January 31st. And as you can see, we immediately put him right to work on doing some good stuff. And so he's here this morning to present to the Land Use Committee where we are in developing a program for, I believe it's energy efficiency is the first item on our agenda, and how we can use some of the funds we set aside for climate action implementation to maybe partner with some other programs. But before I turn over to Hans, I just want to say again, welcome Hans to our department. Hans joins us from most recently from SCJ Alliance, where he did a lot of planning consultant work with communities and towns in the various in the region, as well as before that worked at City of Olympia, and he has a lot of experience and background in transportation planning and community planning, as well as GIS and mapping. So we really are happy to have Hans with us, and want to take this opportunity to introduce him to the three of you. So with that, I'll turn Hans, and we can start off with the program.
Yeah, welcome, Hans.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I was planning on giving you a quick rundown on my background, but I think Rick just beat me to it. So with that, I might just jump right in. I am going to start by sharing my screen here. And I'll ask the number one question that you always do at the beginning. If everybody can see my screen, we'll go right into it.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to be presenting on two different programs today, actually, one of which is the Residential Energy Efficiency Program, which is a new program really for this year. And then the other one is going to be the accessory dwelling unit program that we'll get into in a little bit. And I actually have my notes in reverse order here, so let me scroll so I can get those in the right. All right, so Residential Energy Efficiency Program. As a bit of background on this one, the city converted all of the municipal buildings to renewable energy sources, I believe back around 2007. So there's really been a strong emphasis on that since around then moving forward. In 2016, the city also helped bring about the Puget Sound Energy Buy Direct program that helped actually fund the Skookumchuck wind facility, which actually went operational in 2020. So as far as direct energy sources that are really coming from renewable sources, that's been a growing and consistent push that the city's been working on. And then some of you, I'm sure a lot of you are actually pretty familiar with this stuff, but and then in 2020, we also adopted the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, and a significant portion of this document actually placed an emphasis on current housing stock within the community. Three lines that I really wanted to pull out from that that are quoted here. Residential energy use is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in our region. More than 2/3 of the housing units that will exist in 2050 already exist today. So while there's definitely a positive push towards newer construction being more energy efficient, there needs to be an additional emphasis on retrofitting existing buildings as part of this strategy to really kind of meet those goals. And then within the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, there were a few different strategies that were also outlined as far as how to specifically make strides towards improving overall kind of energy consumption and energy efficiency within the community. This list is also included in the packet that you guys received, but it highlights 6 main ones, including residential energy performance ratings, residential energy audits, rental housing energy efficiency incentives, property tax credit, and rental housing energy efficiency baseline. And you may notice that there's an emphasis both towards homeowners, but then also towards renters. One of the groups that we're finding that we're missing a bit of is the renter community, which may not have as direct of a motivation to make these energy efficient decisions or choices that really kind of improve the house that they're renting in, because they may not see that direct kind of long-term personal gain or on that investment. So trying to find ways to really kind of re-incentivize that for both kind of groups as we move forward is going to be a key part of this. And then also within the Lacey Comprehensive Plan, this has also been reiterated both in the affordable housing strategy, but then in just the comp plan in general, to maximize energy efficiency and conservation in heating, cooling, and lighting. This has been kind of a consistent trend throughout, has been reiterated kind of in all these different documents and plans. So with that in mind, we're actually looking to kind of take those next steps and really kind of put some of these things into action. In the early stages of just kind of doing this, we realized that there's actually a whole host of programs out there, all the way from the federal, state on down to the local level, and also in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. So one of the things that we're going to need to do is figure out what programs are currently in play and available to Lacey residents today before we start doing anything on our end, and then really kind of figuring out what those where those areas of overlap exist, where those gaps might be. So who's currently falling through the cracks that might not be actually meeting one of these programs, and then figuring out specifically what barriers exist for residents and homeowners within the community. And then part of that, we're also going to be conducting more direct one-on-one style interviews with a lot of these different program experts. And then also groups that kind of represent these homeowners and renters in the community, and really kind of have some of that baseline knowledge already at their disposal. And then we actually divided those target groups of folks that we want to interview into 3 different groups. One of those groups is going to be landlord and management agencies. One of those is going to be the tenants and renter groups. And then the other one is going to be that aging housing stock, which we're working on a couple different fronts to figure out kind of how to specifically target those older homes and make those retrofits to really kind of improve the existing stock that's already in the community today. Because as that quote kind of really identified, that's going to be a big portion of raising the energy efficiency and consumption standards of the community as a whole. And then 2 of the programs, early kind of partners that we've already identified, one of which is PSE, which we're currently working with, but they have a whole host of different programs and kind of informational things that are out there. They have performance metrics, incentives, rebate programs, and tips on cost savings. So there's a whole bunch of tools that they already have, but we're finding that there's a disconnect in between those tools and actually getting them in front of folks, and actually kind of making those moves. Yeah, Robin.
For the graph, the my energy usage, what are the 3 lines tracking? Is it different types of energy use or different years?
This is actually just a screenshot that I used from my own PSE bill, so don't judge me too harshly here. But what it is they actually provide, so they take similar homes and they have a metric on how they define that and explain that. And then they actually, so based on the number of bedrooms, the number of people living in the house, that kind of thing, the age of the home. These are all things that factor into that. And then they give you kind of a comparison of your energy consumption compared to similar homes that might be in your neighborhood, kind of thing, just as a quick kind of rough
Nudge
baseline
strategy
estimate of how you're doing compared to your neighbors. Sometimes that works for folks. Sometimes that's either an incentive or disincentive, but it is one of the tools that's out there and something that we may be able to pull from as we kind of advance this program forward. They also give a breakdown of kind of where your energy bill is going, how much of it is spent on heating versus water, other appliances, that kind of thing. And they also have, based on where kind of what section of your pie is being used by whatever the biggest draw is, I should say, they actually have recommendations on how to actually make changes to target that energy consumption to actually reduce that amount. So there's actually a lot of great tools that are out there that I honestly didn't even really know about until I started digging into this. And I think that there is a disconnect between those resources and actually getting them out to the community. So finding ways to partner with PSC to really kind of bring those forward and kind of better utilize those, whether or not that's like a workshop or some informational campaigns, things like that. The big key here is that we don't want to duplicate efforts that are already going on. If there's already a great program for this, we want to definitely promote that and utilize that within this, but we don't necessarily need to duplicate anything. And then the other one that we identified early on was a partnership with the Timberland Regional Library, looking at maybe some kind of home energy assessment program where folks could actually rent maybe something like an appliance meter or a thermal camera, things like that, to do a really baseline inspection of their own home and actually find out where some of those energy losses are coming from, so they can actually kind of check around the doors, check around the windows, that kind of thing, figure out how much energy each one of their appliances is consuming, that kind of thing. So ways to really kind of take it from kind of the theoretical to actually actionable things that folks can do in their homes to actually make a tangible difference. And really kind of, this one might be a good fit for those older homes that are kind of notoriously leaky when it comes to energy use and the loss of heat and that kind of thing. And then once we have all of that information, kind of going back out to the community with all of our findings, really trying to link individuals with the programs that are the best fit for them, and really just kind of doing an education campaign to get this information back out in front of people, and then trying to connect with them and learning about what steps we can take to really kind of bridge that gap and help folks down that path of greater energy efficiency. So I believe that's, yep. So that's that program in a nutshell as far as where we're at with that one. Does anybody have any questions right away?
Yeah, I do, Hans.
Yeah.
Have you done any work with the Thurston County Health Department's housing unit, particularly with the rental housing manager there, to see about connections with landlords and whether they might be willing to invest in energy efficiency? Because I kind of hate to put it on tenants. I mean, you made a really good point about people not feeling ownership of the property or seeing a return on investment there.
Absolutely. So they're within the program interviews, these are kind of the high level list, but underneath each one of these categories, we have a whole host of organizations or groups that we're planning on reaching out to as part of those interviews. And they are one of them that they're definitely planning on including as part of those initial conversations, both to find out what's working, but also what's not working, what programs they are using, which ones don't really seem to fit. Just casting a pretty wide net initially just to find out day-to-day experiences and how we can improve those.
Good. Well, Alyssa on their staff, who manages the rental program, has a really good contact list if you need it.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have my notes and pens in front of me right now, but that is a great lead, so I will write that down.
Carolyn could probably send you an email about it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I can do that. So Robin, you had a question?
In similar vein, the the other group that it might make sense to connect with is the Department of Commerce, because they have a weatherization grant program.
Mhm.
And it's not specific to Thurston County, but I know that they do target grants to assist, low income renters and homeowners to improve the housing, so that instead of needing to go seek a new house, you can stay in the house where you're at if you just have those improvements, like replacing windows, replacing the HVAC system. And I could probably get you a contact name for those folks
Yeah.
as well if you don't already have one.
Yeah, any groups that you guys can think of that would be a good fit for this, we'd love to have them. I have a list of a few organizations so far, including the Washington Landlord Association, Hometown Property Management, Olympic National Association of Residents and Property Managers, kind of under that management agency category. And then for tenants and renter groups, we have Community Action Council. They have a couple different programs in place that we're going to reach out to. Washington State Department of Commerce, as we were talking about, they have a great weatherization plus health program going on. And we have some contacts for that. And then Home First is another one that we've identified as kind of early contacts. But if you guys have more, we'd love to have them. And that's definitely an expanding and moving list. So as we learn more, we'll definitely probably be adding to that and reaching out to other folks as well. And then for the older or aging housing stock, we're working with TRPC on that one and finding out how to reach out to those, kind of doing a GIS audit, if you will, to figure out where those homes exist and how to reach out to those homes specifically, and then also just those communities to make sure that they're targeted as part of this.
I appreciate that you're doing an analysis of the existing programs so that we don't have redundancy, because it does feel like there's a lot out there, and maybe just putting a lot of these resources into one easy to access, easy to consume resource document will be helpful to a lot of homeowners looking to do this.
Mm-hmm. Right now, I think that they're all kind of scattered across each one of these agencies. So some of that upfront work of really just kind of figuring out what programs are out there and then which ones any given individual might qualify for is a big part of the lift. So I think that that's a great area for us to exist in and really kind of lessen that initial effort for folks.
Ready. Any other questions on this one before we move on?
No questions, just a quick comment. I would just say, I just kind of piggybacking on what Robin said, there's always a lot of money in these programs that doesn't get used for that reason, right? We just went through it with rental assistance and utility assistance money that we had, and it sits there and doesn't get used, even though there's clearly a need. There's clearly people that need the help. But I think the big part of the problem is access. They just don't know these programs exist. So anything you can do to help put it in an easy to access, one-stop kind of place where you can find all the programs, I think could have a huge benefit.
I agree. I think that that's definitely one of the target outcomes that we're going to be aiming for at this point. Is really just kind of making almost kind of a, I don't know exactly what format it's going to be in yet, but I imagine maybe even a couple as far as informational flyers that we have maybe at our front counter, also on the website, probably also a couple other areas that we're kind of working on. But I think a big part of that is just connecting folks with resources. But yeah, if there's no other questions on this one, we'll pivot quick over to the ADU program. Let me know if that are you guys looking at the ADU program now? Perfect. Yeah. I didn't know if I had to stop sharing and then reshare again. This program has been around a little bit longer. Some of you actually might be somewhat, at least peripherally aware of it. It initially started right around the end of 2019, which unfortunately coincided with the Stay Home, Stay Healthy order in Washington State. So a lot of that initial enthusiasm that actually was built, and we did see as part of the kind of initial public launch of this, did get sidelined a little bit. So we're going to refresh this program in a couple different ways, and I'll run through those. But then part of that is also designed to just kind of reinvigorate folks and reintroduce the program to the community and get it back out there again. So as a little bit of background on ADUs, they're intended to be smaller in size and prominence than the primary residence. They're supposed to be independent from the main residence. And then they're also supposed to offer a lot of the basic amenities that you would find in a home. So your kitchen, your bathroom, bedroom, kind of living space, those kind of things. The one pictured here is actually what's called a detached ADU. So that one's entirely separate from the primary residence of the site. Going back up here to this one, you can actually see these icons these icons down at the bottom here are examples of a range of different types of what the form that an ADU could potentially take. Starting on the left over here, this is, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but this would be something that's maybe a attached conversion. So somebody took their home and kind of sectioned off a portion of it to convert that into a separate living space. There's examples of basement conversions, garage conversions. The detached one is near the center here. That's the primary one that we're going to be talking about today. But they're really what we're getting at is that there's a lot of other examples also. So we can really be flexible and creative on how to bring these things about, depending on the setting that, or the property layout that anybody might have. And then this is an example of an attic, and then another on top of garage conversion. So a lot of different ways out there, but that's kind of the background there of what an ADU is all about. These ADUs were actually in the Lacey Municipal Code since 2011, I believe, but they were really kind of brought to prominence as part of the affordable housing strategy and re-emphasized in around 2019, really because they do a lot of the things that we're looking for as far as housing goes. So they increase density, provide housing for middle class, somewhat, I don't know what passive is an accurate description there, but somewhat passive income, improves property values and flexible living situations. So all things that were identified in the affordable housing strategy that we're looking for, these are a way of accomplishing a lot of those. So it seemed to be a really good fit. So it's something that we're re-emphasizing. And then to further promote these, catching up with my slides here. We updated and improved the permitting guidelines to really streamline this process and simplify it. So it's a lot easier for folks that come in and can actually apply for these things. So looking at building setbacks, privacy, sewer connections, lot development coverage, stormwater, parking, and access. These were all of the elements that we really wanted to emphasize as part of these designs, and taking those, we actually partnered with a local architecture firm in town to come up with some designs that actually met all of these standards and that could actually get pre-approved. So when folks come in and start asking about the potential opportunity of these on their site, we actually already have some ready-made plans for them that they can actually pull from, and really reduces the costs, improves kind of the predictability of it, and actually cuts down on the timeline as well. So a lot of different elements there. Yeah, Robin.
So in the packet, it talks about estimated construction costs for the studio, the 1-bedroom, the 2-bedroom. Are those pre-incentives and like permit cost reduction efforts, or is that like are those the costs with the supports that the city has put together? Because like $225,000 is still a pretty steep cost for someone to build an ADU, a regular
Agreed.
homeowner. Even if you get a loan, it's still, that's a chunk of change.
Yeah, so, and unfortunately, these estimates are also pre-COVID and a lot of the supply chain things going on right now. So
the cost might be higher.
Even be more than that these days, which is difficult. Unfortunately, one of the things, I guess I'll take back the word unfortunately, but ADUs are by design more cost per square footage because they pack in the expensive parts of homes. So your kitchens, your bathrooms, things like of that nature tend to be more expensive per square footage than maybe like your living room or your bedrooms, less expensive rooms of the house. So you do see a higher cost per square footage as part of that initial ADU investment, no matter really kind of what route you're looking to go. So that is something that we're definitely paying attention to. I have a couple of slides on things that we're looking at to potentially reduce those costs and make them more predictable. From the city side, Really what we can help with is the permitting costs and the design costs that folks would normally have to pay for, that we're helping to reduce and on that front. But as far as the cost of materials, hiring contractors, things like that, that's kind of not within the current focus of the program.
And that was another question I had, was if there's a list of contractors that do this kind of work, either like a DES master contract list that homeowners could review, and just a list of folks that people can call if they're thinking about doing this, to talk it through.
Yeah, so
I know the city cannot be seen to privilege any one particular contractor, but if there was a list of people who had responded to an RFI.
Yeah, so we can't single anyone out specifically as far as recommendations, but in 2019, and this is one of the things that we need to revisit, we actually went out to both builders to figure out who has kind of experience building these types of units, and created a list of local folks that would really be a great option for that. Then we also actually identified local lenders who have lending programs set up that actually are consistent with ADU specifically, because that is kind of what some lending or agencies might consider as a non-traditional type of loan. So figuring out who already has experience with that, what lenders feel comfortable doing that, and trying to find some matches there as well. So on both of those fronts, we do have some great sources. But given that is a list from 2019 now, so those lists could be updated as part of this.
That's great to hear, though. Thank you.
Yeah. And then so moving forward, there were actually 4 different ADU designs that were permitted, or that were pre-approved, I should say, as part of this program. Starting with the smallest one, it's a studio, which is right around 480 square feet. It's a smaller living space. And then, so this is the studio here pictured, and then also the plan for it. And it's designed kind of more as a flex space. So the living room and bedroom, you could either put up a wall there, or it could be more kind of an open setup. And then you have the 1 bedroom, which is 600 square feet, slightly larger, and it has more of a defined bedroom space. And then going from there, we have 2 different 800 square feet options, 2 bedrooms. This one is a single story option, has a slightly larger footprint, but everything is also on the ground floor. And then we also have a 2-story one, which has a smaller footprint. So it would take up less of your space in your yard. And then it has some of the amenities split out. So it has more of the living room and kitchen on the first floor, and then kind of the bedrooms and bathroom on the second floor. So each one of those is part of the pre-approved permitted ADUs that we have available for folks that are interested in these at the city, and they're ready to go today. And then the really exciting thing about each one of these is that while the plans are in place, the exterior cladding is very intended to be flexible. So you can really actually pair these with both your existing home and the surrounding residence or surrounding neighborhood. So these ones over on the left here are actually examples of what the studio could look like. And then moving from left to right, you see examples of the 1 bedroom, the 2 bedroom, and then the 2-story. So you can really actually kind of fashion these after you take the base plans to fit your home, which is exciting. And then kind of circling back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as making the costs more predictable and trying to bring those down as much as possible. We're also looking at potentially adding to that list of pre-approved units. Department of Labor and Industries actually certifies factory assembled structures for use as ADUs. This is also part of your packet, so something that we're looking into. There's actually a company up in Seattle that has a showroom up there, so you can actually go and tour these and actually understand and kind of experience what they might feel like and get an understanding of the fit and feel. But this would be a potential route to lower the construction costs. Also the build time, which is a significant draw of a project's finances. The longer it takes to build, the more expensive that project's going to be. So shortening that timeline. Some of these can get up in a week or 2, depending on once you have the foundation and everything else in place. So getting creative with what we're looking at. This is one route that we're considering. And then another one that we wanted to focus on is the design guide. We're looking at updating. So right now we have it in our code, and we have a web page dedicated to it on the city website, but we're looking at actually really kind of building out a full design guide for this, which is something that we're seeing happening in a number of other communities, and something that can really make the process a bit more accessible and less daunting for folks that are just starting out, a little bit more graphic heavy, a little bit more kind of accessible in that sense. And then we're also looking at a site suitability map. So actually a searchable, interactive GIS-based tool where folks can actually zoom into their property and get a lot of those early bits of information. So as far as, you know, your lot coverage, your zoning type, some of those early potential barriers that might be out there to limit where and when these can be constructed. So getting some of those early answers so folks can actually come to us, or we can look it up with them if they come in and talk about it, and kind of identify their property and identify what opportunities might be available to them. So that's another one that we're working on right now. And then once we've completed the design guidelines and have the GIS feasibility tool up and running, we're going to do another awareness campaign, really kind of push it out to the community and try to reinvigorate everybody and get everybody excited about this. At that, actually right at the 2020 open house that we had for the last time that this was really pushed out to the community, it was, I believe, standing room only. So there's definitely, there is interest and excitement here, but it's been a few years. So we want to make sure that we refresh everything and get it back out to folks and really start hammering this again and really promoting it. And I think that is my last slide on that one. So does anybody have any questions?
Anybody? Okay, well, I just have one, and I want to preface it by saying I think this ADU program is one of the coolest things that Lacey has done in a long time, and I'm really excited about things starting to move again with it. But one thing, given the high cost of construction right now, is there any possibility that we might be able to add tiny homes as an option for people to have an ADU on their property, particularly people who have smallish lots? And that might be the only way they could accommodate an ADU.
So I might start to answer this and then I might see if Rick has anything to add on it. I think so while these designs were created initially for accessory dwelling units, they are available actually just for folks that want to build a smaller unit on their property as a tiny home. So that is something that is available. I think we've had one example of that so far in the community. So that is another route. These are ready to go in that sense. We're familiar with them. We kind of know the permitting process attached to it. So that is a way to also just help folks out on that front. Rick, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Not much, because that's exactly right, is that we don't have a minimum square footage size for a house. It just have to have your basic bedroom and bathrooms, those type of things. But
Right.
they can use these ADUs as a primary residence and be labeled as a tiny home, or they can use another design. The other piece of it too that provides flexibility too is somebody may have a lot they want to build their house on, but they need time to be able to do that. They can start out with building the accessory dwelling as their primary home, and then eventually build the primary home second, and then move in and still have the ADU benefit. So there's a couple of different ways that provides flexibility for a lot of it.
Right. Great. Thank you. Anybody else? All righty. Well, Hans, thank you so much. I appreciate you walking us through both of these.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Good to meet you. And it looks like we have one more piece of business with the development update from Rick.
Yes, and I think joining me will be Grant Beck as well as Sarah Schelling, that they can provide some more details into the presentation. But basically, we've taken this opportunity to update the Land Use Committee on developments across the city. This is an update from our presentation, I think it was last September. And so I'll start sharing my screen. All right, can everybody see the development update home screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So with this update, I'm going to talk about all the different development projects. I'm going to start off though, just kind of again looking at some of the permit numbers, and some of this will look familiar to you because it was included in the Planning Commission joint meeting update in terms of permit activity in the previous years, and then also part of it comes from the conversations, the presentation that we did with Thurston Regional Planning Council regarding the Housing Action Plan status. So this is a screen that I know you are familiar with. This is our permitting activity going back to 2015. And really the thing I want to emphasize is it really demonstrates that switch from primarily our permits numbers being predominantly single family detached permit issuances versus multifamily. And you see in 2018 that flip that we're producing more units in the multifamily context than we are in the single family context. And there's a couple of factors going on there. One is we are running out of available land that's zoned for low density residential as our jurisdictional boundaries have built out. We're seeing more infill in our higher density and mixed use zones coming in. And then two, the market's been going that way. We've years ago we were watching the multifamily vacancy rate being at 2.5%, 3%, which is very low. You want to try to be in a healthy 5 to 6% range. And so we were waiting for this multifamily market to really start taking on here, and it has over the last 6-7 years. Of these, what this represents since 2015 is a total of about 3,625 total units being created. And again, just under 1,500 of those are single family detached, and just over 2,000 are multifamily. And 2021 was our biggest year of total multifamily units produced in 1 year at 778. And to put a little context into that, when we took a look at the numbers between 2000 and 2014, those 14 years, we permitted about 6,383 units. Only 700 of those units were multifamily. So in 2021, we had more multifamily units produced by permit issuance than we did of 14 years prior to 2015. Yes, Robin.
I don't recall, I've seen this presentation before, Rick, so I'm sorry if there's a slide that talks more about this, but we show the number of units built, but we don't show the number of bedrooms, for instance, in those units. And so we've got this population increase number, but I don't know the size of the multifamily units. Like, are they 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom? I think having that additional detail might help understanding the gap between like the capacity, what is being built, and what the need is.
Yeah, and what we've seen in the early multifamily push was more of your 1 and 2 bedrooms with a smattering of 3 in studios. Over the last 18 months to 2 years, we've seen projects coming in are more focused on the studio type apartments. And I'll talk about it a little bit later in the presentation, as well as we also seen a different type of unit being proposed now with the effect of the pandemic and remote work. I think it was going that way anyways, but the pandemic kind of spurred it along as we're getting more live work type units produced as well. So more designed to be a home office as well as a residence. And we should be able to start tracking number of units. That's not a number or a stat that we traditionally have kept, but going forward with our new parking ordinance standards that are going to be based off of unit counts, we'll be able to track that metric a little better. But again, just kind of in the general sense, you see the population increase about 8,760 with those 3,600 units. It comes out to about 1 unit per every 2.4 people of population growth. Now, this is a slide that I think is very, very telling of the dynamic in our housing market in terms of affordability. Going back to 2017, the median sales price was right around $255,000. And at the time on the market, the inventory we had on the market, and that's both new homes as well as existing homes being resold, we had about a 2.5 month supply. And traditionally, a normal, healthy month of supply that we've heard from the Realtors Association is about 3 to 4 months. So even in 2017, that 2.5 month supply was a little low. But as you see, if we go forward to 2022, those two lines diverge, and we now hit a median sales price for a single family home at just under $500,000. And our supply on the market at any given time right now is about 2 weeks. So that really kind of gives an indication of the challenges we have in the market and trying to figure out strategies or things we can do to create the play field that try to create different strategies of like either more unit production, more variety of housing, and then also trying to create housing that fits different income segments as well. And then this slide you guys are all very familiar with is some of the actions that the council has taken based on the Housing Action Plan and the Affordable Housing Strategy to try to do that. You know, you just heard about the pre-approved accessory dwelling unit program, the waiver of fees for all housing producers that create low-income housing, consolidating the low-density zone, extending the multifamily tax exemption program, developing an energy efficient audit program that you just heard about, and then of course the parking requirements, trying to make sure that we can contain site development costs, but make the parking fit the need of the particular use. So that's a quick run through of the previous slides. I know I only have about 15 minutes left or so, and I want to leave some time for question and answer, but I'm going to run through some of the development projects we currently have either in the permitting stage or in all the way out to the construction stage. And before I forget, I do want to thank Grant Beck and the current planning team of Sarah Schelling and Samara Seymour and Reese Fant, as well as the Public Works Development Review team, because while the whole organization works to accommodate and review projects, development review and the current planning and the buildings counters are the front lines of trying to work through these processes and keeping these projects going. And a lot of projects you're seeing getting ready to break ground are ones that came in just during or pre-pandemic through the permit review process. And these groups of folks of the city staff have really worked very diligently to keep those projects moving forward so that they can implement the plans that are in place for the city of Lacey. So with that said, there's about 24 various projects throughout the community. And what I'm going to go through is going to represent about 3,600 total residential units and about just under 500,000 square feet of commercial type development. So with that, we'll start with Intelco Loop Multifamily. This is a project that's currently under land use review. It's a 216 unit apartment complex located off of Intelco Loop. If you recall, the corporate center down to the bottom screens is the Crossroads development. The council just approved the bids for the water reservoir located right on this parcel right here. So again, we have the kind of the build out of the corporate center and one of the remaining parcels up off of Intelco Loop. We also have the Woodwork Townhomes. This is a project I think council's been aware of for quite some time because it was the last lot of or last phase of a subdivision that was approved back in 2005 of Shelter Farm. They're, as you can see in the aerial photo, they're on their last buildings for completion. So they're almost to the stage of project completion and should be completed this year. And that's going to total about 125 townhouse style multifamily units. These are called townhouse style, but they're actually rentals and not townhouse for sale. Now, there's a couple of projects in here that are in active review before council, so I will just touch upon them briefly. We have the Gateway Hicks at Hicks Lake. This is a multifamily project, about 132 units located off of Hicks Lake. Hicks Lake Apartments, right adjacent to it, 178 unit multifamily complex. And those will be coming before council, so we cannot get into specifics on those particular projects. If you travel to Slater, Kinney, and Pacific corridors, you'll notice the landing is coming out of the ground. That is at the corner of Slater, Kinney, and Pacific Avenue. You might remember the old Olympic Floral located at the corner. Well, this project is a two-phase redevelopment of about 20,000 square feet of new commercial on 5 pads. So in essence, they have demoed the existing buildings you see in this aerial, and are now building the corner building and one other pad off of Pacific. And this is a nice project to watch because this is it's one of the first retail corridor projects along Pacific that's implementing our form-based codes that council adopted back in, I think it was 2017. And as you might notice at the corner, the primary building has a strong presence, a lot of retail, and you wouldn't know that that's going to be a 7-Eleven at this point in time. Councilor Greenstein, do you have a question?
You just answered. I was wondering what was going in each building because I had thought it was a 7-Eleven going on the corner, and then watching the construction, it does not look like what you expect from a 7-Eleven, and it's far bigger than what I would have expected. So is it going to be more there than just the 7-Eleven in that building?
Though I believe that it's just going to be the 7-Eleven in that building, and I don't know if Sarah's there, if she has any other information on the other tenants.
A huge 7-Eleven then.
Well, and part of that though is going back to our form-based codes is we weren't concerned about uses, but we want to make sure there's a good relationship between the street realm, the public realm, and the private realm, the buildings. And part of that was design along Pacific in this particular section was to have a little bit more vertical nature. And so that was what that's driving. There's a minimum height, I believe it's 24 feet.
20 feet.
What's that?
20 feet. On
20
Pacific.
feet.
Mhm.
So I was trying to get an extra 4 there, but there's a minimum height, so that kind of creates that presence. And it really does look sharp, and it does frame that intersection quite well. And then with the windows and the glazing, it can be repurposed over time to other types of uses, which is part of the intent of the form-based codes is get the uses in there, but then it evolves over time with different type, but the form's right. And do you know of any other tenants going into this project, Sarah?
The second building that's going to be under construction soon, or is currently under construction, which is a little bit further down Pacific Avenue, is a Chipotle. And then in between the 7-Eleven and the Chipotle is another restaurant user that's going to have some frontage there on Pacific Avenue and some doors exiting out onto Pacific Avenue. That's in some design review right now. I think there's a coffee shop planned for a building along 8th Avenue, which is just to the north. But the 7-Eleven and the Chipotle were the drivers of the redevelopment initially.
So that whole building then is the 7-Eleven. That's going to be a really, I mean, there's a lot of square footage in there. That's
Yeah.
a big 7-Eleven. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
And the 7-Eleven is going to do expanding their convenience focus and also with the gas as well there too. So it'll be a nice project when it's completed. The other nice thing, or another thing about this is that we're starting to see more sites with older buildings on it being considered for redevelopment. So we're starting to see that land value pieces come along and part of that infill process. Next project is the off-campus emergency department, a 10,000 square foot emergency medical office. It's being proposed by Multicare, located here at the corner. And that'd be the first phase of a multi-building location off a golf club. Then we also, I think you're all aware of the 6th Avenue Apartments by now. It's the 4-story, 151 unit mixed use development on the former site of the Shanghai restaurant. You definitely will see it now if you drive down there. And that's going back to some of the change in unit types. This one is predominantly studio type apartments being marketed to young professionals as well as students that may be attending community college down the street or at the St. Martin's University.
And there'll be commercial development on the first floor of that one, right?
Correct. There will be a ground floor tenant space, commercial tenant space, and so far they've been indicating there'll be a tap room of some type, some type of evening spot that we don't currently have in this particular area. Another project that I think you probably are aware of and have received some comments on is the Bradley Park subdivision. It's just south of 15th Avenue Northeast. In context, Slater Kinney North is over in the middle of the map, and down at the bottom is 6th Avenue, and across 6th Avenue off the screen is the North Thurston High School. So Bradley Park is an 81 lot subdivision, comprising about 15 acres up in the treat area. And then the south half is going to be institutional use. I believe it's starting to move forward with the development of a local church expansion. Further down to the east on 15th Avenue, if you drive down there, you'll see the construction site for the Moderna Apartments. This is a 360 unit apartment complex comprising of 14 buildings, and there will also be a 23 lot single family subdivision associated with it. And so it's this particular property here, there'll be connection to the existing streets of Century Court. And if you drive down 15th Avenue, you'll notice that the first two apartment buildings are framed up and coming out of the ground adjacent to 15th Avenue. Also, you'll see all the construction and road improvements are occurring along its frontage. Another nice win for us is the Shopco building went dark. It's now being backfilled, or it has a tenant improvement issue for Coastal Farm and Ranch. They're, in addition to filling about the 75,000 square foot Shopco space, they're also adding on a 25,000 square foot outdoor storage space for their feed and larger equipment. But Coastal Farm and Ranch is going to backfill that Shopco building, which is a nice win for us when we have these larger box stores go dark. Down off of Carpenter, we have the Serenity Apartment Homes. This is an 81 unit multifamily project with live work units on the ground and a ground floor coffee shop. So again, we're getting more of that mixed use and a different type of unit to meet some of the changes or trends in the market that we're starting to see. They will also have a phase 2 just south, and if recall, you just redesignated that particular or that project actually come in for a comp plan amendment for the joint work program. So they're looking at moving forward with the second phase once they finish up the first phase of Serenity Apartments. Jumping further to the north across the I-5, we have the Britton Plaza North. This just received a site plan review approval. It's a 552 unit apartment complex located north of Britton Parkway. Between Gateway Division Subdivision and the Britton Apartments that they're currently built on the south side. This property has had several different land use reviews over the years, and now it's finally moving forward with a multifamily project on it. It will also connect up to the existing street system and complete the grid tying into Britton Parkway. The Griffin multifamily project off of 32nd Avenue is currently under construction. This is a 183 unit apartment complex with 12 buildings. And of course, it will have also the tree tracks and open space all incorporated into it, as you can see in the small site plan. Another project we're excited about, and it's kind of we've worked on for several years. And actually, this project, the conversation about this project started way back with the South Sound Behavioral Health Hospital. So this is the second behavioral health hospital that'll be located in the city of Lacey, Olympia Behavioral Health. It's going to be just under 76,000 square feet in size and an 85 bed facility. It's going to locate on the east half of this treed parcel off of 31st Avenue that was just recently completed and connected to Marvin Road. And the remaining area in here is a wetland complex that will be protected as part of the project and dedicated to open space. And so it's a nice use for this upland area with access off of 31st. Moving south on Marvin Road, we have Tech Equipment that you see under construction now. This is the largest West Coast semi-truck dealership. They deal with Volvo and Mack trucks, and they also will have a parts parts sales as well as vehicle repair at the location. They'll be occupying primarily the north half, and they'll develop the south half of the property next to the intersection with pad retail. Once they complete their project, then they'll start mass occupying the south half of the site. Then across the street of Hogan Bay, we have the Hogan Bay Mixed Use Project. I think this is another project that the council is fully aware of, and it's broken ground and the site's under construction. This is a 350 unit residential project, again with live work units, and it also has a townhouse component on the backside. If I remember right, something like 16 townhomes, and then the commercial frontage along Willamette and Marvin Road will have about 70,000 square feet of commercial, including coffee shops, and a new restaurant concept called Chicken and Pickles, which is a family style sports bar with indoor and outdoor pickleball courts. And so that's something too that's missing in our market right now, is that entertainment type of food. Yes, Councilmember Vasquez.
Definitely was picturing just pickles that you eat, but that's fun. Just to orient myself on the map here, are those the little lakes that are shown at the top of the picture? Is that the lot park?
Yes, that's the lot polishing ponds infiltration facility.
Yeah. And then that open space on the right-hand side, is that the dump and the dog park area?
This here,
Yes.
this is the entrance into the Meridian Campus Master Plan, and the Thurston County landfill and the dog park are this
Yep.
location here. And this is the park and ride lot for commuter transit that's operated by Intercity Transit. And that's the nice thing about the residential being concentrated on the Hogan Bay frontage too, is it's got proximity to transit. Also, they'll have a park area on this backside too for the residents.
That's great.
A little bit further up Hogan Bay Road is NC Machinery, located at the corner of 31st and Hogan Bay. Now, if you drive out here, you're going to see there's a lot of construction activity. And of course, you have the Amazon facility just to the north, and expansion of that for parking. So you'll see this roadway here pretty torn up in construction. We're doing everything we can to keep adjacent properties informed, but also too, as this project moves forward, 31st will be improved on both sides and completed as part of this project. But NC Machinery, if you're not aware, is a heavy equipment rental, and they also are a Caterpillar dealership. So they do some sales as well as rental and repair for heavy equipment, which is a nice addition to our commercial inventory. This is a project out at the corner of Campus Glen Drive and Willamette Drive, the Meridian Campus Neighborhood Market. I know the council's aware of this. I'm going to move on. This is a project that's going to be going before council, getting ready to go to the hearing before the hearing examiner this in a couple of weeks. Now we're going to go into some of the residential projects occurring out in Meridian Campus. We have the Campus Reserve Townhomes, which is a 39 townhomes, being about 3 stories in height, and 7 building clusters located on the west side of Willamette Drive. And then just across the street, we have the Campus Springs Townhome. They're basically twin projects. This will be 28 townhomes, same 3-story design and 5 building clusters. We also have further down off of 31st in Willamette, the Willamette Apartments. This is a 216 unit apartment complex that's currently in the civil design stage and getting ready to break ground this year. One thing I just want to let the land use committee be aware of is, while they'll be developing the multifamily on the majority of the parcel, there is another neighborhood commercial zoning portion at the corner that will be available for somebody to want to develop in some type of commercial use. Going kitty corner across that intersection, we have the 188 unit Winston Apartments that just recently received land use approval, are now in the civil review design stage. And let's see, now we're jumping across the freeway again back to Martin Way. Off of Talon Lane, we have the MHK mixed use site. This will be a 2-story 18,000 square foot mixed use building on Martin Way. This is the intersection of Hoe Street. And then further east on Martin Way, we have the Martin Way mixed use project. Property we annexed a couple of years ago, and we issued land use approval a while ago, and we're waiting for the owner to move forward and breaking ground. There'll be 96 dwelling units. It's going to have 5 stories with ground floor retail. And this is that project that we will have some benefits or additions to reduce its environmental footprint with rooftop solar, high-end mechanical equipment, high efficient mechanical equipment, EV parking spaces for its residents, as well as a electric bike share program for its residents as well. So now we're going to jump into more of what's in the future. They're going back into the Midtown district, which is again been a focus for the city for quite some time. We're having a pre-sub next week with MGR for their next project, which they acquired the 2 buildings adjacent to Hunterman Park, and they're looking to redeveloping the parking fields into a 2 5-story buildings with about 360 residential units and ground floor retail along 7th. Basically, the type of project that's been visualized for this area, the Midtown area, since the Downtown 2000 plan was developed in 1999. This will have underground parking, and of course, we're going to be working through those project details and how they best deal with the parking and parking ratios. And but one thing is it will energize 7th Avenue and create that opposing retail, ground floor retail that oppose the Ricardo's restaurant across the street. As part in concert, this is part of the council retreat last year, is the 7th Avenue Roundabout. We are actively in discussions with MGR as well as St. Martin's Abbey about negotiating how we move forward on a roundabout at that intersection. And we will need to get right away from St. Martin's Abbey, and that project, the discussions are moving forward with a meeting next week. And then here's another interesting trend that we have in retail development and infill is back in Martin Village, we have some interest in somebody wanting to buy the Burlington Coat Factory site. Burlington Coat Factory is now operating probably maybe a third of its square footage in terms of retail. And there's a plan to try to redevelop the site into a mixed-use project with residential in the parking lot. So we've had a couple of pre-subs with a prospective developer, and we'll see where that moves forward. But that also demonstrates a trend that we're starting to see in the market is people are starting to see these parking fields that are underutilized. How can we best utilize them and get more value and go vertical and create that mixed-use concept? The benefit is you do lose background parking, but you gain in that exponential value of property assessment, as well as a resident opportunity for housing and smaller scale or more efficient retail. And then finally, back out in the northeast area off of Britton Parkway, Olympia Orthopedics announced that they'll be locating on a parcel right next to Callison's, and we've had several pre-submission conferences with them, and they're going to be working with them through their development stage and land use submittal process. But that's another project that we anticipate coming in for land use review this coming year. So with that, that's a quick run around the city and all the various active projects going on. I know there are quite a few questions. We can stop now for some questions, or we can I'm going to turn this over to Grant to kind of just give a highlight of where we are in onboard our new permit tracking system and what that will look like when it goes live. So I'll leave that up to Chair Cox if you want me to take some questions now on development, or if you want me to go ahead and let Grant just kind of give a quick overview of the track it system.
Well, what's the pleasure of the committee? Do you have questions you want to hold to the end or do them now?
Yeah, we're kind of pushing the time, so we should probably just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Thank you. Well, we're hopefully in the final stages of deploying Track It, and along with that is online portion of it, so the public and contractors can submit to us without coming into the counter or driving down from Seattle, or getting into the 19th century. And this is just kind of a screenshot of what we're looking on. We're trying to make it as compatible as we can with the updated city's website. We're initially going to roll out the online portion for the kind of the over-the-counter permits, the electrical, HVAC, that kind of thing, maybe tree clearing, tree permits, just to be able to make sure we have all the bugs out before we have our contractors submit, full sets of plan reviews. The system's pretty intuitive. It allows you to upload all your documents right from your desktop. Along with this, the building team, construction team is learning to use our digital tools for all our plan reviews, and we're going to take baby steps into going completely digital. So as we roll this stuff out, we won't have the River Ridge plans, for example. I think were about 16 inches thick, and we require like multiple copies of them. You can't even lift them up. So to start with, we'll just have one hard copy submission, and everything else will be digital. And there's a number of efficiencies gained in that, which, you know, kind of following up with the work that the current planning team and the building team have done of the things that are under construction right now. We need to use new tools to be able to keep our levels of service up as we continue to pump these things out and continue to provide excellent customer service and quick customer service. So this is a greatly needed tool. We're really looking forward to it, and my personal goal is to, you know, be able to do everything I need to do without ever getting up out of my chair, and we'll get there.
Yeah, thank you, Grant. And just in closing too, again, you see all that activity that's been going through the permitting system over the last couple of years, and also trying to onboard a system. So the same people are doing managing the activity of permitting also are onboarding this new permit system. So I did want to recognize Grant and Sarah, Samras, and Reese, Wade, and the building guys, the front counter, Cindy and Leah, and Jared in Public Works, and Development Review, Tom and Mike and Joey, and all those guys. They've been doing human efforts to keep development activity consistent and flowing while still trying to onboard and improve their systems in order to continue to provide great service to the public service to the community, both for applicants, but also for our public. Because the other part of it too, we're challenged with a lot of new residents coming in with all this new population growth, is a lot of people coming in are surprised at what's going on, and are concerned. As council, I'm sure, has been contacted a few times. Having this online system will also make information easier for public to access and find out what about projects, where they are in the processes too. So it's not just something for our staff or the applicant to use, but it's also for the public to be able to see projects and track projects through the process, and to make comments through that as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sheriff Cox, and sorry I went over, but appreciate the opportunity to give you a development update of what's going on.
Well, thank you, Rick. You packed a lot of information into the report. So any quick questions from committee members?
No question, just you know, it's amazing. You drive around the city and you see so much going on, but when you lay it all out the way you just did, it's unbelievable how many projects are actually going on in the city at the same time.
Yeah.
Totally. I one quick question about the reserve senior apartments, and it's mixed use as well. Whether you know whether they're having any success at all with trying to get commercial or retail in there on the ground.
That's a good point. And actually, that reminds me that we need to reach out and find out, because we haven't had any contact with them for some time, and I know. I'm trying to think timing wise, it opened up just beginning or prior to the pandemic. So I don't know if there were some issues there, but we'll reach out and find out, and maybe we'll have some updates for you of what their challenge with tenants. And same thing, we've contacted the owner for the project across Pacific from the new 7-Eleven. It has an empty space there. And it's we're not quite sure why that still remains empty, because there's still users out there looking for spaces to land.
Right.
So over there is pretty tricky though. The one across from the landing.
Yeah.
Just the way that's laid out. I mean, you have so little visibility to the road just because of the way it goes this way.
Right.
That's going to be tough space to rent, I would have to think.
It is, but it's also though, usually you'll find some users that will get in there, especially if it's at a lower rate. And
Right.
And the other part of it too was that was originally when it came in was a full redevelopment of the site and repositioning the gas station, but it became cost prohibitive, especially with some of the access and frontage improvements that would be necessary. So they chose that one phase, and I would imagine they'll eventually try to do some more work in there over time.
And the landing, once it's up and running, will help them too, because activity will help them to fill that space, I think, too. And hopefully some of those other empty spaces we have just up the road from there, a couple of places that used to be the bar and restaurants over there that are empty, that'd be nice to see them get filled.
Well, if you had west down Pacific, between Pacific and the trail, there are some older buildings that I will expect at some point in the near future, we'll start seeing people looking at redeveloping those sites and not repurposing the building, but actually doing redevelopment. If that's the case,
Even better.
Form-based codes, we also want to try to encourage trail amenities and access to the trail focus as well, because there's an amenity right there behind there that could create a nice little energy and little micro district within Midtown.
The crossroads for the two trails. Yeah.
Yep.
I was just going to mention, I'm excited to see that so many of these projects are mixed use, because it does feel like that's the direction we have to go, as we have sort of a constriction on new space to be developed. We need more commercial and residential closer together. That also makes it possible for people to drive less, right? It increases density so you can shop near where you live and you don't have to drive everywhere. So that's exciting.
Totally is. All right. Anything else, committee? Well, thank you all so much. Rick, Grant, everybody. And we'll call this adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.